Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be diving into some really interesting stuff about the book of Revelation
Oh, yeah,
that you sent to us.
definitely.
We're going to be exploring how some people are connecting the book's imagery to modern technology.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique way to look at this old text.
Right. I mean, you've got these really vivid descriptions of creatures and events.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty easy to see how someone might start to draw parallels to things we see in our world today.
Exactly, like trying to understand the future using the vocabulary of the past.
Yeah. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. So we're not here to debate theology.
Right.
We're just exploring how these interpretations come about.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right into it.
Okay.
You pointed us to Revelation chapter 9, which talks about these locusts, but they're not your average garden variety pests,
Not at all.
are they?
The source material you sent quotes Revelation 9:7 through 10,
Okay.
and it paints a pretty wild picture. These locusts are described as looking like horses prepared for battle,
Wow.
with faces that resembled human faces
Well,
and tails with stingers like scorpions.
that's definitely not the kind of locust I want to find in my picnic basket.
No.
It sounds almost mechanical, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
And then there's the sound they make.
Yeah.
It's described as like the thundering of many horses and chariots rushing into battle.
I can definitely see where people might start thinking about helicopters with that kind of imagery.
Mm-hmm.
The loud roaring sound, the
Oh, wow.
potential for attack, it's all there.
It is. And the tails with stingers could even be interpreted as some kind of weaponry,
Oh, wow.
like missiles or something.
Yeah.
You could almost picture someone from like centuries ago seeing a helicopter for the first time and trying to describe it using the terms they knew.
Right, like a historical game of telephone,
Yeah.
where the original message gets kind of transformed as it's passed along.
Yeah.
But, before we get too carried away with the helicopter idea,
Mm-hmm.
it's important to remember that most scholars approach biblical prophecy,
Right.
especially in Revelation, from a more symbolic perspective.
Yeah.
They'd likely see these locusts as representing just like a destructive force or entity,
Uh-huh.
rather than literal flying machines.
Exactly. The symbolism is crucial to understanding the deeper meaning of Revelation.
Yeah.
But, for this deep dive, we are embracing the listener's curiosity
Right.
and exploring these unique interpretations.
Yeah.
That's what makes the deep dive so interesting.
Absolutely. It's all about looking at things from different angles and seeing where it takes us.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to something that might hit a little closer to home for some people.
Okay.
The mark of the beast.
Ooh,
I bet you've heard those conspiracy theories about microchips, right?
I have.
Well, Revelation might have something to say about that.
It does.
The passage you sent, Revelation 13:16 through 17,
Yep.
describes this mark as being required on their right hand or on their foreheads so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark.
It's pretty eerie
It is.
how some people connect that to our increasing reliance on like digital ID
Yeah,
and technology for financial transactions.
exactly. I mean, we've got biometric scanning, digital IDs. Who knows what's next?
That's true.
It's like the truth is stranger than fiction.
Right. And while these comparisons are intriguing,
Mm-hmm.
we can't overlook the symbolic meaning of the mark of the beast either.
Yeah.
It represents like allegiance to corrupt power
Okay.
and a rejection of spiritual values.
That makes sense. It's like a reminder that the message is about making moral choices
Mm-hmm.
and the consequences that come from them.
Yeah,
Okay, you ready to tackle another big one?
I think so.
How about the beast from the sea? This one really paints a picture of power and a scary future,
It does.
maybe a world order,
Yeah, you sent us to Revelation 13:1 and 2.
which describes this beast as having feet like those of a bear and a mouth like that of a lion.
Wow.
It's given power and his throne and great authority by the dragon, which is often interpreted as Satan.
So we've got this terrifying creature rising from the sea,
Right.
symbolizing maybe a global superpower or a powerful organization.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you at all?
Definitely, especially when you think about the rise of globalization and how power can be concentrated in the hands of just a few,
Right.
whether they're governments or corporations or something else.
It's almost like Revelation is giving us a framework for understanding those anxieties, even if they're expressed through these fantastical images.
It is.
It's like, hey, be careful of unchecked power,
Yeah,
no matter what form it takes.
exactly. And remember, Revelation often critiques these oppressive empires.
Right.
So this symbolic message about tyrannical rule is really important.
All right, so we've got locust helicopters.
Yeah.
digital marks of the beast, and a global superpower as a beast from the sea.
Right. But Revelation is packed with all sorts of striking imagery.
It is.
What other examples are people connecting to modern technology?
Well, there's a description of great hailstones and fire mixed with blood in Revelation 8, 7, and 16:21. Those are some pretty intense images.
It makes you wonder if those descriptions could be talking about something like bombings or even nuclear warfare.
Right. The idea of fire raining from the sky and causing like mass destruction certainly fits.
And what about that part in Revelation 9, too, where it talks about smoke rising from the abyss? It makes me think of images of nuclear explosions or even like smog and pollution.
It's a very evocative image.
Yeah.
And if we think about it in the context of like Revelation's overall message about the dangers of unchecked power and destruction,
Right.
it takes on a deeper meaning.
It's almost like it's warning us about humanity destroying itself.
Right.
Either through warfare or neglecting the environment.
Exactly. It's a reminder that our choices have consequences and that we have a responsibility to use our power wisely.
You mentioned earlier that Revelation is often interpreted symbolically.
Yes.
Are there any other passages where people are drawing these modern parallels?
Yes. There's a passage about the two witnesses in Revelation 11:3 through 11.
Okay.
They have the power to call down fire from heaven.
Wow.
And they're described as being able to like strike the earth with plagues.
It's a pretty powerful image.
It is.
I can see how people might connect that to maybe modern figures who wield a lot of influence, maybe through technology or media.
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
The idea of fire from their mouths could be interpreted as powerful rhetoric or the ability to expose corruption and injustice.
And the plagues could be seen as representing the consequences of those actions,
right?
Whether it's like social upheaval or even environmental disasters.
It's a thought-provoking interpretation, especially when you consider how individuals and groups can use technology to amplify their messages and maybe cause widespread disruption.
It's fascinating how Revelation can still feel so relevant to our modern anxieties.
That's the power of these timeless stories and prophecies. They tap into something deep within the human experience, something that transcends time and culture.
Okay, I think we have time for one more big topic before we wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Okay.
You mentioned Armageddon earlier.
Yes.
That's probably one of the most well-known and maybe even feared events described in Revelation.
Definitely.
How are people interpreting Armageddon through a modern lens?
Well, the source material points to Revelation 16:14 through 16.
Okay.
Which describes a gathering of the kings of the whole world for a battle on the great day of God Almighty.
It's definitely a dramatic scene. A lot of people see that as like a prediction of a final world war. Maybe fought with weapons of mass destruction.
Right, and given like the advancements in military technology over the past century, that interpretation isn't hard to imagine.
It's pretty sobering.
It is.
But, you know, it's important to remember the symbolic meaning of these events.
Absolutely.
As well.
Armageddon, whether interpreted literally or symbolically, represents a culmination of the spiritual struggle between good and evil.
Right.
It's about like the choices we make.
Yeah.
And the consequences of those choices.
So even if we don't believe in a literal end-of-the-world scenario, Armageddon can still serve as a powerful reminder of the importance of fighting for what's right, resisting the forces of darkness in our own lives and in the world.
Exactly. It's about choosing hope over despair and working towards a better future.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about locust helicopters, digital marks of the beast, global superpowers as beasts, and a potential world war.
It's been a wild ride.
It has.
And it's incredible how Revelation can spark such like diverse interpretations.
It really makes you think.
It does.
What stands out to you the most from all of these connections?
I think what strikes me is how Revelation, despite being written so long ago, speaks to our deepest fears and anxieties about the future. It's a reminder that, like, the challenges we face as humans, the struggles between good and evil, power and control, these are all, like, timeless themes that continue to play out throughout history.
Like a cautionary tale that transcends time and culture.
Exactly.
Urging us to be mindful of our choices and to strive for a more just and compassionate world. It really does feel like Revelation is tapping into those like anxieties we all share. And even though it's kind of a bleak picture, sometimes it does also offer hope.
Right?
It ultimately points toward a future where good triumphs and justice prevails.
Yeah.
Does looking at it through this lens of technology change how you think about its message at all?
That's a good question. I think for some people, seeing these connections to modern technology might make the warnings in Revelation feel more urgent, more real.
Yeah.
Like holding up a mirror to our own world, saying, hey, are we headed down a dangerous path?
It's like those sci-fi movies that seem so far out there when you first saw them.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing those elements pop up.
Right.
Makes you think twice.
Exactly. And whether we take the interpretations literally or symbolically, I think exploring these connections can really help us understand the challenges we face today. It's about engaging in critical reflection and asking ourselves the tough questions about how we live and what kind of world we want to create.
So, we've been focusing on these modern interpretations.
Right.
But the source material also included some teachings from the Bible.
Yes.
On living a good life.
That's right. The listener sent a lot of material. And our deep dive was specifically about the tech connections. It's important to remember that the Bible offers a broader perspective on how to live a good life.
Right. It talks about things like love and compassion, forgiveness and integrity, the pursuit of justice and peace.
Yeah, those topics are outside the scope of this deep dive.
Yeah.
But they're there for anyone who wants to explore those aspects further.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that Revelation, with all its imagery and warnings, is part of a bigger story about hope and redemption.
It is.
Okay, well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From locust helicopters to the meaning of Armageddon.
Right.
Even touched on the idea of living a good life.
That's right.
It's been a real mind-bending deep dive.
It has. It's amazing how much we can learn from these ancient texts.
So before we wrap up, what's one thing you hope our listener will take away from this?
I hope they'll keep thinking about these connections between Revelation and the modern world.
Yeah.
What resonates with them? What new insights have they gained? How can they apply these insights to their own lives?
Love it. Keep those brain gears turning.
Yeah.
And a big thank you to our listener for sending us such fascinating and thought-provoking material.
Absolutely.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this journey through the book of Revelation and its surprising connections to our modern world.